Okay, today I'm in Elstree, Hertfordshire, with Alan Newman, a well-known author and ex-bookmaker. Alan, can you, for those that don't know you, can you introduce yourself and tell us a bit about yourself, please?
Obviously my name is Alan Newman, also known as Ginger. I'm nearly 78 years of age, and I've been in the bookmaking, gambling business basically all my life. I can remember going to Wembley Stadium during the war when I was 4 years old, because they only had greyhound racing in the afternoon, and that was my first recollection of greyhound racing, and even today it's still the love of my life.
Can you give us some background when you first got involved with actual bookmaking, or betting even?
Well, my father was a bookmaker before me. He started making a book at the old Wembley Stadium in 1932. Wembley opened as a dog track in 1928, and the reports say that there was 70,000 people for the first meeting. My actual introduction to being a bookmaker was basically round about when I was 16. I started to go to Hackney Wick, which is now the Olympic Stadium. I used to go to Wembley, and I used to be more of a runaround at Wembley, going and getting the teas and going up on the photo finish line. I wanted to go to Wimbledon, but they wouldn't allow me in at Wimbledon because I wasn't old enough. You had to be 18 to get into a dog track. I really started at Hackney Wick working for a guy called Izzy, who was actually the clerk for my father. Hackney Wick worked out pretty good because it was a Thursday afternoon and a Saturday morning, so it didn't interfere with the other tracks that we were working at. And from then on, it just progressed. I actually started to make a book when I was 18 years old. I wanted to bet at Wembley, but my father wouldn't let me bet there. He said, "You've got to learn a bit, and I want you to learn the hard way." So I said, "What do you mean the hard way?" So he said, "Go to a flapping track." He said, "You'll find out what the hard way is." And I was actually about 18 and a week old, and I went to a place called Rayleigh, which is near Southend, on a Saturday night, when I think the first race was 10 o'clock at night, but had to be over by 12 o'clock, because it was Sunday laws. I got to laugh to myself thinking what it was all about. And that was the first place I ever actually made a book.
Now, you've written a book as well as making some books. You just want to show us that one. And tell us a little bit about the story behind when you decided to write this.
I wrote this book. This is a story of a story sort of thing. My granddaughter had just finished university at Birmingham, and while she was there, she lived with 4 other girls or 5 other girls in a house, and they lived together for 2 years, and even today they're all still very friendly, and they used to want to come to somebody's house every month to keep tabs of what was going on amongst themselves. And one day it was my granddaughter's turn to have them over to her, and as I knew them, because we used to go to Birmingham to visit my granddaughter every couple of months, we were invited for dinner. And after dinner, one of the girls said to me, "Alan, what do you do?" And I said to her, "Well, I do a bit of this and a bit of that. That's one of my favourite sayings." And she said, no, what's this and that?" I said, "Well, now I'm basically semi-retired. I work a couple of days in my nephew's office and a couple of days at the dogs." And she said, "At the dogs? What do you mean at the dogs?" And I related to her that I was actually a bookmaker on a dog track. And she said to me, "Tell me a story about the dogs." And I related a story to her about the dogs. And from then, when I finished relating the story, she said to me, "If you could put that on paper, you could write a book." I had to turn sideways to get out the door because I think my head had swum so much.
I've seen some of your stories on the Star Sports website, and there's one particular one that I really enjoyed about your brother turning £1 into a year's wages. Can you tell us that one?
Yeah, it was at Hackney Wick on I think it was a Thursday afternoon. It could have been Thursday or Saturday. My brother was the tic-tac man at Hackney Wick. I was the floor man, bag man, tea boy, whatever it was. And it was the first race of the day. My brother turned around and in the tic-tac language he said to me, "What price is the 6 dog?" I showed him in tic-tac that it was 3 to 1. He said to me, again in tic-tac, "Put £1 on it." And that was actually our wages for the day. We got £1 each. And the dog won. He backed in that day, or in that morning, 6 dogs. Every one of them had won. We then went on to White City where we worked for our father. And again I was a runaround and my brother was the tic-tac. And he said to me, a certain race came along and he asked me what price a dog was. And I showed him it was 7 to 2 on. And he said to me, again in tic-tac, "Put £2,800 on it." We bet a 2,800 to 8 on a dog. Well, I even remember the name of the bookmaker. The bookmaker's name was Nat Newman, no relationship. And the name of the dog, and I don't know how I can remember it, but it was called Pigalle Wonder, owned by Al Burnett, who finished up winning the Derby. That was one of the stories of knowing a successful gambler. My father found out what my brother had done, and he barred him from ever going to the dogs again.
And did he stick to that barring? Or did
He did, yeah. He never went to a dog track again.
So apart from being a bookmaker on dog tracks, were you ever a bookmaker at horse racing?
No, not a bookmaker at horse racing, but a bookmaker on betting shops. We had 5 betting shops. We also had a casino, and that's where some of the things that I write about in my book comes to me naming the book It's Not What You Know, because I learnt from the casino business, the more people you know, the more doors you can open. And I really believe in today, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
So were you involved as an owner at all?
Again, no. That was one of my father's written or unwritten rules, I should have said, that if you owned a dog, you get influenced. And being a bookmaker, my father didn't want to be influenced. He was a strict bookmaker in the respect that he used to work out the odds, have the percentage, and as long as the percentage was the right way, my father wanted to take bets, not have bets. And that's why we never ever had a dog, apart from pets at home, but never any greyhounds.
Okay, so what you've been very modest so far about the book, but I understand you've raised rather a lot of money for a charity through writing it. Is that correct?
Yeah, what happened is I was writing the book for my own enjoyment, and I was going to probably get 40 copies printed and give them away for Christmas presents. While I was writing this book, my wife became ill, and I didn't write very much, and then unfortunately she passed away. And I have a guy who helped with the book called Dave Stewart, who phoned me up a few months later and said to me, "Alan, what are you going to do with the book?" And I thought about it and I said to him, there's nothing I'm going to do. And he turned around to me and he said, "Well, why don't you finish whatever you're going to do? Write an obituary." And for one moment I thought, what's he talking about? But he said, no, not about your wife or anything like that, but about the obituary of dog tracks, the closing and the deaths of all the dog tracks. And he said, finish it off, and then we'll publish or print a few, and if we sell them, any profit we'll give to the hospice where my wife died, which was the Peace Hospice in Watford. And I finished the book, we got it printed, and as of today, which August will be 2 years, from donations and sales of the book, we have managed to give to the hospice about £82,000. I still go to the hospice every 5 or 6 weeks, and I take in, because they have like a reception for patients' families, and there's like a tea bar, and I take in tea and biscuits. Not just me, there's lots of people do the same. So I still have a very close connection. We have a golf tournament coming up, and I try and get prizes and things for the auction. And anytime I see anybody, I won't say I ask them for a donation, but I tell them about it, and I'm still managing to get money for them, and that's basically one of the best feelings I'm getting out of it.
And is the book still available now?
The book's still available. If anybody wants to go on to Alan Ginger Newman, they can find it, or if they want to go on to Lulu, the publishers, they will find it on there. It's Not What You Know by Alan Ginger Newman.
Okay, thanks for that, Alan. Everybody go and buy it. You mentioned about the obituary for greyhound racing. Now, do you feel that it's actually got that bad?
Well, when I wrote the obituary as such, I mentioned all the tracks that I can remember going to in London. In actual fact, I wrote about one of them that I never ever went to. But I do feel now, because when I did write it, there was Wimbledon. That was still the track. But since then, that has now gone. So it is really, I think I won't say the beginning of the end, I think it's nearly the end of a dog track that we know. Dog tracks today, to my mind, are basically just there for the betting shops. If anybody goes to a track during the week, I don't think they will realise what it's actually all about. I went to Romford, which I still go to a couple of times a month. I was there Wednesday a week ago and counted the actual public in the stadium as 7 people. The bookmaker who I help out bet there Monday just gone. There are 3 bookmakers, and the turnover, I think it was on 13 races, the turnover between the 3 bookmakers, I know you're not going to believe it, was £360 for the whole meeting between the 3 of them. Not one of them took £360. One of them actually took 60, one of them took 90. How can the dogs survive? I mean, as a bookmaking business, they can't, but the difference is now bookmakers are being paid to go to the dogs, and the management of the tracks need the bookmakers for the betting shops. The only thing that really upsets me is that it's so uncompetitive now, because you go to the track and you're basically warned that if you don't bet with a percentage of about 25%, you won't be left. No, I'll say it again. You won't be betting at the track for much longer. When I was a bookmaker, if the percentage was 8-10%, that was norm. 25% is purely for the betting shops, and that's the only reason with dog racing is people really don't go there anymore. Maybe on a Saturday night you'll get a few people, but the rest of the time it's deserted.